Welcome back to the MLS Net Boys podcast. That was a nice healthy pop on that one there. My name is Chase. I'm here with my friend Jacob. He's currently watching Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts or something over there.
In my brain, I forgot what episode number this is, so I went to Spotify to pull it up.
54 or 55?
55. Episode 55 of the MLS Net Boys show. But yeah, something else was lurking in the background of that video.
Man, another crappy week of MLS. This league sucks. I hate everything about it. Not because my team lost, but this league just sucks.
Our opinion on the league depends on how our team did. Nothing else mattered. I don't know what happened in Miami. I don't know what happened anywhere else. Portland lost. So I'm sad.
Before we go into the scores, what is your biggest takeaway this week from the league? It could be your favorite moment, your biggest winner, your star of the week, or our new favorite thing on Instagram, the Fraud Watch.
Fraud Watch. I mean, Portland's got to be on there for Fraud Watch, but we're gonna.
How do you define that? Because So for who doesn't know, there's a MLS Sickos account. It's literally the name of it.
The name of it, yep.
And every week they put out a story asking people to submit their Fraud Watch, and people can submit it, and then they'll add to like their post for the week of who's a fraud. But they don't put any criteria. So what is? Because for me, I think a fraud. My criteria is like somebody who's been hyped up, or a team that's like hyped up and then doesn't perform. Because if not, everybody would just put like San Jose, Portland.
Knew it was coming. I think Portland's there now. I agree. I think it's not. You don't just look at the worst team, because San Jose, people weren't very high on them, right?
That'd be something kind of funny in that though, like a team that didn't invest at all. The roster wasn't there, and then everybody else in the league's going, "You're a fraud. You suck."
And like San Jose's been memed upon so much. People,
the smallest club in MLS.
People literally are not going to be surprised or let down by them being bad. I mean, their fans are for sure, but I think for me, it's a team that has been hyped up, or a team that is just like spiraling out of control. Maybe a coach says something controversial, right? For me, my Fraud Watch team is Atlanta United. Just dipped below the playoff line. They're in 10th place. They are outside of the playoffs. They lost at home on the weekend to Minnesota United. And this was a team that started off pretty decent, right? They lost on the road to to Columbus. But, that's just what you do in Columbus, right? But then after that, they had some big wins at home, kind of classic Atlanta games, lots of goals, lots of big crowds. But they've kind of been cheeks the last little stretch here, honestly.
I would agree. If I was picking a team, I would definitely go with Nashville. Despite the result they picked up this week, I think Nashville's probably my pick for Fraud Watch, or Orlando. Two teams that were pretty hyped up, more so Orlando, and just have been absolutely just cheeks so far this year. I'm looking at their current Fraud Watch posts. I want to pick out just some of the obscure things on here, and you just give me a quick answer. Fraud or not fraud? You got Austin FC.
Not fraud.
Respect. You got Corey Baird.
Fraud.
Okay. Shaqiri.
Fraud, unfortunately. That pains me.
Yeah. New York Red Bulls 2.
I'm a little uneducated on that one, so I'm just going to trust their judgment and say fraud.
There's some random shouts on here. Jackson Reagan.
Oh, I'm going to go fraud because did you see what happened with him?
Did he get another red card or something?
No, so remember the one he got where he kind of like went in on a Vancouver Whitecaps player from behind and kind of got the back of his heel? Mm-hmm. So that was a debatable red card, most people would say, who were looking at it. A lot of Seattle fans felt hard done by. Well, in the game against the Galaxy this weekend, I don't remember which player it was, but one of them had their foot on a Seattle player, like the back of their calf, and he just posted on Twitter like a screenshot of both, and he just posted. I don't remember what he even captioned it, but he put them like side by side, and everybody's like, "Well, he's got a fine incoming." So
fair enough. I would agree as a fraud. Couple more here. Josh Wolf.
not a fraud.
Really?
A month ago, I would have said different answer for him and Austin, but they've done well recently.
All right. Some random ones. Kekuta Mane. That one may have been my contribution to this fraud watch.
Where in the world is Kekuta Mane is a better question. Is he in the CPL still? No, he left.
I don't know, in the Haitian Premier League or something. I don't know.
I saw a post from Pacific City, the Canadian Premier League team, that was like, "Thank you for Kekuta Mane for being a part of our club and organization." Brother's gone.
All right, last one here. Enzo Capetti.
Oh man, he's one who really should have been in there, but he just scored. So
I would still put him in there. I think that guy's been just a cheeks of a DP signing.
If Portland know how to do a throw in, then he'd be in there for sure. So yeah, we'll leave him in fraud watch.
There's some random things. There was like the New York Islanders, like a just random
NPSL
hockey,
team?
it was a random hockey team from New York. I don't think it's like an NHL team. I think it's like a second tier hockey team in New York.
Man,
which reminds me, did we talk about it last week? The Portland, the Portland, Maine team. That's what are they? The Portland Evergreens or something like that. I don't know if we even talked about this.
no,
I don't remember if
Weird
it was
story.
before or after the pod, but there's a new Portland team for us to support since our team sucks so much. In Portland, Maine, I think they're like the Portland Evergreens or something. It's a USL, I think the championship. It's a new team joining Portland Pines. That's what it is. Portland Pines USL team is joining. Could be a new destination, a new away day for the lads.
if the U.S. Open Cup is saved, we need that matchup.
That would be awesome.
We need that matchup. The Portland Derby.
The U.S. Open Cup final, Portland Pines versus Portland Timbers.
I would fly out. Chase and I would do our first live episode of the MLS Net Boys.
It would be such a massive occasion. They'd have to host the game in Las Vegas, the Raider Stadium.
You'd have tens of fans show up.
Just packed out in the first row. Oh, man. Anyways, that was the only thing I wanted to talk about. I think I asked you multiple questions from the start and then just dove into the fraud watch right away.
We covered Kekuta Mane, the New York Islanders, Portland, Maine football club.
I don't know. There's just so much because I feel like this is an MLS podcast, but we like to cover a little bit more than just that. And there's so much revolving around like the world of MLS and just soccer in the U.S. Like every week, I feel like there's just a weird new MLS sicko moment that happens, or like a iceberg moment, like we're gonna get onto later with Walker Zimmerman.
Right.
I love it. Shall we dive into it though?
Let's do it. That whole time you were talking, I was trying to find the goodbye post for Kekuta Mane because I swore I saw it, but I wasn't sure if it was a fever dream. Yeah, they announced he was departing Pacific Football Club in the Canadian Premier League. Kekuta Mane has left.
Would have been funnier if it was just something you dreamt up, like just swore it was real, like a very heartfelt like message to Kekuta Mane.
Yep. One can dream.
That's a guy I swear I could see playing men's league in like Kaiser, Oregon one day.
You're not wrong.
Anyways, let's move on. Our first game of the week that we will be covering, Atlanta United hosting Minnesota United, the United Derby, the United Shield. We're making up more rivalries here in the league. Atlanta falls 2-1 to Minnesota.
Like I kind of alluded to, Atlanta, they haven't won since March 30th or 31st, and that was against the 10-men Chicago Fire while Atlanta was at home. And they've had some draws, but some losses thrown in there too. It's been really disappointing. For a team most people, I think, put in like that top 4 in the East, kind of like a home playoff team. Other than Miami, Columbus, Cincy, I think they were kind of locked in that 4 spot. Maybe Orlando up there instead of them. But they definitely should be a playoff team. Something's wrong. Thiago Almada feels like he's cooled off, not quite at his full potential. But Minnesota, huge win on the road, getting points still, and kind of feels like they're putting the Reynoso garbage stuff behind them. That was a quote from one of their players. They're all just kind of ready to move on. And what better way to do than stomping Atlanta?
Yeah, I would agree. Atlanta not looking up to what everybody's kind of hyped him up to. I feel like I constantly hear commentators just be like, once they get all their pieces back, once everything's in order, once this happens, like it's always once this, once that, and just hasn't clicked for them. I mean, they're not doing terrible so far this year. I mean, they could get one win and be up in 5th place.
Seattle of the East Coast, man.
But yeah, I don't know. I think everybody's kind of nobody's focusing on how big of a loss Miles Robinson was for this team. I think that's been one of their key issues, is losing that leadership from the back and that stability. Because, I mean, they haven't conceded a ton of goals, but they just don't look as comfortable defensively this year as they have in the past.
Agreed. Staying in the South, Charlotte Football Club hosted Portland Timbers, our beloved squad. And Charlotte wins 2-0. You got Capetti scoring. You got Petkovic scoring. You got Zach McGraw forgetting how to play professional soccer. You had a little bit of everything.
Zach McGraw, I've said it before and I'll say it again, looks like he has
bricks for boots.
Yeah. He looks like you ever see those like compression like ice like packs they put all over like players' legs? It's like looks like a pair of pants they put on. He looks like he's playing in those. Like he looks like he's running in these things that just restrain how his legs can move.
We both really like the guy, but I think it's been pretty clear, like this season in particular, he's been pretty darn poor. Think of the Vancouver game, this game, and to me, he just looks like a basketball player in like PE class who's like playing soccer. You know, he can win headers. He's pretty physical. He does all right, but then anytime a moment of skill or pace like occurs next to him, he's just lost. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know what else to say about like, because our defense hasn't even been that much better when he's not in it, but we do look better. So I don't want to pin like our whole entire defensive woes on this one poor guy, but he's absolutely a huge hole in our defense. I don't even know how you fix it at this point. You need to get in like a DP center back at some point to fix this, but we can't you can't just, go right past Charlotte here. We gotta focus on them a little bit. They looked pretty dang good this game. They looked comfortable. They never looked like they were worried about anything. They created a lot of chances. I mean, the possession was pretty even. We had a little bit more possession than they did. But, I mean, I think it's only up from here for Charlotte. I mean, the Eastern Conference still looks really competitive, but Enzo Capetti getting off the mark. Maybe he's not a fraud after all.
Leo Abato was out as well. So
Leo Abato was out. That one, what was that guy's name that just absolutely cooked Zuperich and McGraw most of the game? Petkovic. Yeah, he looked great. No, the Diagre.
Oh.
That winger. He looked great for them. I said it to you before this. Patrick Agimon looks like an absolute threat. They just have like an insane physical presence about this team.
They really do. And honestly, if you're a Charlotte fan, it hasn't, like, it's not been the greatest start, but definitely better than in years past. Like, I would be encouraged if I was a Charlotte fan. They had a rough couple weeks before this, lost in stoppage time to New York City, got blown out at home, but bounced back when needed. Now they're in 6th place. They're ahead of New York City FC, Philly, DC, Atlanta, Montreal, Nashville, and Orlando. Like, just to put into perspective.
It has been the best start for them as a club in MLS. I mean, it's pretty new since they've been in 3rd year, but I mean, 14 points in 11 games is their best start to an MLS season so far.
Dino's at the wheel. You gotta love it. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I want to erase this game from my memory.
Timbers suck. Charlotte, I hope you cook the rest of the East because I don't dislike Charlotte as a club. I want to see that club do well.
Same.
And it's one of those few games where your team loses and you aren't too upset with the other team. Like, there wasn't anything like...
There's no bad blood.
Yeah, there's no bad blood. They weren't doing anything extremely annoying despite our team just getting cooked by them.
Right.
Other than Enzo Capetti scoring a goal and then shushing his home fans for some reason. That was weird.
Yeah, I mean, we both kind of talked about it off the pod before this. We were both pretty disgusted by this game and pretty turned off with the rest of the night of MLS. But yeah, it wasn't because of Charlotte. It was just because our team is incompetent. But I'm done here. DC United hosting Philadelphia Union. A 2-2 draw. You had DC going up 2-0. And then Philadelphia Union storming back 2 goals. One absolute screamer from Jack McGlynn, the left boot. Jumbled my words up there. But, I mean, DC, once again, knows how to blow leads at home. They're one of those teams, man.
The SKC of the East. DC, though, I mean, they can't be too upset. This is a lot better than they've been in the past. 9th place in the East after, 10 games, 11 games? They had a really good... I think that, like, the ideal way this DC team wants to play, just like a booted ball from their goalkeeper, Benteke flicks on, Jared Stroud, like, heads the ball down to Mural, I think it was Jacob Mural, if I remember correctly, he kind of, like, lets it run through his legs and then slots it home from outside the box. First MLS goal for him. And I think that's exactly how this DC team wants to play. 2 passes, both are headers, and then a shot that just goes in. Very direct, exactly how they want to play the game.
Pro club's strategy, pretty much.
Basically. But, yeah, I mean, honestly, they're playing against one of the better teams in the league in a Philadelphia Union. I feel like they probably are kicking themselves for not holding this lead at home against a pretty weak Philly team right now. But, I mean, they can't be too upset with this result.
Philly with a lot of off-the-field drama. I don't know if you've heard about this, but they lost midweek to the Sounders, and Andre Blake and Jose Martinez both with very cryptic Dairon Asprilla-esque like Instagram stories, just black text and then or black screen and then white text with like a very like passive-aggressive like message.
I saw Andre Blake's of like essentially saying like you play better when you're happy or something like that.
Like when you're appreciated.
Like, is he talking about like his like the club, or was his like wife or girlfriend like getting mad at him for not doing enough chores or something? And he's like, well, I don't know what the deal is there.
To me, it kind of reminds me of Seattle, where they've had this core for so long. They've been very successful, but something is just, they're almost aged out.
Let it out, brother. Let it out.
Oh, man. Hard sneezing coming there.
Yeah, I don't know. It's past. No, it hit me. Oh, this is rough. Yeah, it seems as though they're kind of past their era, their peak that they were at. I don't even know. We completely lost all train of thought there.
Yeah, I'm kind of done talking about that now. Anybody can look up on Reddit what Andre Blake posted on his Instagram story if they want.
Yeah, I think Philly, they're at a weird point right now because they're coming to the end of an era and they're the victims of their own success because I don't think they're going to invest in high quality players, and they can only continue to churn out these players from their academy for so long, especially now that the rest of the world is aware of it and they're going to start buying up these players. Because not even just the Kevin Sullivans, but I've seen a lot of like reports about interest for other kids in that age group, like 15, 16-year-olds that are going to get snatched out of their academy.
Yeah, and Brandon Aronson, Paxton Aronson, you got Mark McKenzie, Austin Trusty came out of the Philly system. They've had a solid pedigree of players, honestly. In the last 5 years,
They're gonna start, and they got, Quinn Sullivan, Jack McGlynn. Like, a lot of those guys are gonna move on eventually. I don't see them sticking around at Philly forever either.
Right. Moving on, Inter Miami hosting the New York Red Bulls. We both predicted this game. Chase said a Miami win, 4-3. I opted for a draw when we predicted these. Boy, was I wrong. Miami wins 6-2, and this is a tale of two halves. And Dante Vanzier scores in the 30th minute. They're up 1-0 for the Red Bulls. You're thinking, cool. Miami scores 6 goals in the second half. Messi with a goal and 5 assists. Before I get your take, I saw this funny thing online. I don't know if somebody was exaggerating or this was like a meme, but I saw this thing saying like a Red Bull fan like was watching the game, went to grab food, and like came back like midway through the second half. And, like, Miami's just pouring in goals. Brazil versus Germany style.
This was a fun game to watch. It's kind of funny because, like, I remember last time it was 4-0 Red Bulls and Dante Vanzier got 4 assists. Or was it him or was it Lewis Morgan? I think it was Vanzier got 4 assists. And then this game happens and they're up 1-0 in the first half and everybody's thinking, oh, maybe it's going to be the same thing again in Miami this time. And then Leo Messi does Messi things and gets 5. The first time any MLS player's gotten 5 assists in a game, and then also scores a goal. So in one half, he managed to do what nobody's ever done in MLS and get 6 goal contributions, 5 of them being assists. Absolutely insane, and made it look pretty easy along the way too. I mean, I will say like a couple of those goals weren't really a product of his amazing passing, but some of them were some absolutely just dime passes. So,
yeah, this is wild. It's like what you picture Messi would do in MLS if you just plopped him in the league with the ex-Barca boys. But
this Miami team's looking a little dangerous. And in games like this, I was thinking about this after I watched this game. Imagine if we did have Miami on the schedule for the Timbers with our current defense. Just Zach McGraw trying to close down and just get
just backpedaling, turning both directions. You got Messi on one side, Suarez, Jordi Alba overlapping.
Just imagine rolling up to Providence Park. You just see a bunch of pink shirts everywhere, Argentina jerseys, and the crowd is just going crazy. Just every time they score like 8 goals on the Timbers.
That'd be disgusting. That would be absolutely disgusting. But
and then Evander makes history by scoring 9 goals in one game. Gets the
in
first
the last
ever
15 minutes.
The first ever triple hat trick.
I would be there. I would be there for that. But we're gonna move on. Everybody and their uncle is probably talking about this, even if you're not listening to an MLS podcast. Anything soccer related, Messi would be covered. So a bigger occasion. In Florida, Orlando City hosting Cincinnati. Another one we both predicted. We both said Cincinnati was winning. However, we got the score wrong. Cincy wins 1-0 on the road. Lucho Acosta scores 17 seconds into the game. And they hold on for an hour and a half.
I saw that he'd scored in the first minute. I didn't realize how quick it was. And then I was just kind of like, oh, I'll come back to this game later. And I kept seeing it was 1-0. And I was like, that is not a game I want to tune in for. I don't know if this is a hot take. This is my least favorite type of game. More so than like 0-0s. I hate when there's a goal just early on and then just nothing for the rest of the game. I think I would rather watch a 0-0 than watch that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. There was 2 red cards here. So there was just a lot of just shenanigans, I guess I would say. Mm-hmm. But I mean, great win on the road for Cincy. This is kind of just what Cincy does, you know? And I'm just really disappointed with Orlando City once again. I feel like we talked about this a lot, but it's just been so disappointing. I mean, Cincy's a tough team, but it's been all season for Orlando City, and I'm done. I'm done talking about this.
Who's been more disappointing, Orlando, San Jose, or New England?
Man, that's tricky. I'd say
If you had to rank them in terms of disappointment.
I'd say Orlando most disappointing, then New England, then San Jose. Most people weren't too high on San Jose.
Yeah. No, I would agree. And Orlando had such high hopes, and then to be where they're at right now, looking like they most likely aren't going to even be anywhere near a home playoff spot.
Right. Plenty of time to turn it around, but already a big mountain. Yeah. I mean, they're second to last, only behind New England, but New England didn't have the expectation. I think most people would have said New England, like, not like an away playoff team, probably. Maybe a home team if they exceed expectations, but Orlando, people were saying Shield, MLS Cup. That's disgraceful. I want to move on, though. San Jose hosting LAFC, and San Jose wins 3-1. You know what's funny? This matchup is kind of interesting because last year when LAFC was undefeated to start the year and they were knocking teams out of Champions Cup and they made it to the final, their first loss in league play was at San Jose. And they always play this game at Levi's Stadium where the 49ers NFL team is. So they've kind of created they have the Cali Classico with the Galaxy and they play that one at Stanford Stadium in the summer and do fireworks afterwards. They're kind of creating their own tradition with LAFC and hosting at this big stadium. They win 3-1. Their newer DP Pellegrino scores, and then also Hernan Lopez, their new number 10, makes his debut. Instant impact. He looked pretty good. Up the Quakes, man.
Let's go. I was so happy to see this result after just getting all this slander from LAFC fans last week. I love seeing LAFC lose. It's one of my favorite things.
Same here, especially when a team...
They're so spoiled. They're so spoiled with all the success they've had so quickly.
You want to see a wild stat? I was looking up, and I saw this percentage of the shot-stopping rankings, and every goalkeeper in the league, or every starting goalkeeper in the league, and how they've fared in save percentage. Guess where Hugo Lloris was?
Second to last.
He was dead last.
Jeez.
He had a rough game here as well.
I was going to say, they've, conceded 19 goals now? He hasn't looked good, and I said this when they signed him. I didn't think he was a good signing. I mean, he was washed in Europe, but everybody thinks for whatever reason a washed European player can come dominate MLS. Even as a goalie, he's definitely past it. I think he brings a different sort of mentality and pedigree to the club, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But I think they would have been much better off just retaining Crépeau if they could have.
Yeah, it's so interesting because LAFC, since they've been in the league, they've had this goalkeeper issue, right? They had Tyler Miller, okay goalkeeper, not great. They got Kenneth Vermeer, who was a terrible signing from the Dutch league, and I forget the one in between. They had some younger-ish goalkeeper, but it's never really been a solid player until they got Max Crépeau, the guy who literally sacrificed his World Cup for LAFC to win MLS Cup. They let him go, fine. I heard he wanted more money. I heard he was happy there. I don't know the full story behind the scenes, but I wouldn't be surprised. I bet he wanted to stay. He had family there. Then they had probably one of the best backups in the league, John McCarthy, and they let him walk as well. They don't offer him a contract. He could have been a starter for them. He was starting when Crépeau was out. They let him go to a crosstown rival. Doesn't make any sense. Just to sign Hugo Lloris.
Yeah, poor decisions from that team.
I mean, at best, even if Lloris was doing solid, you get 1-2 years out of him, maybe?
At best.
Whereas Crépeau or McCarthy could have been there for half a decade.
You know what? This is random, and it just made me think of it, but McCarthy absolutely screams Timbers 5 years ago, like a Jeff Attinella, a guy who's been a backup for a long time and then gets 2 years in the limelight at Portland and then falls behind somebody else
kind of becomes
after
a backup.
getting gets injured and then falls behind another goalkeeper. I don't
Such
know.
is the life of
that's just a Timbers goalkeeper thing that's kind of how they've had goalies for a long time, but we'll move on. We found a way to bring it back to the Timbers yet again.
Classic.
Next up, we have Toronto beating FC Dallas 3-1. Bernadeschi looking good in this game. Looking pretty dang good. Matty Longstaff, story of the week, scoring his first goal for Toronto in the 82nd minute. What a legend of the game.
His brother scored too, as well. Back across the
They
pond.
need to bring that guy over to over to MLS.
Suit him up for Montreal and have a fierce.
Oh man, those two guys just studs up against each other. That'd be awesome. Imagine their parents come to watch an MLS game and that's the one exposure they get is Toronto and Montreal.
I mean, it could be worse.
Not the worst atmosphere.
This is random, and it doesn't even have anything to do with soccer. But one of my favorite all-time sporting moments was the Portland Trailblazers NBA team in our state, and this was when the Blazers had Steph Curry's brother. And this is when Portland was pretty darn good. They made it to like the semifinals pretty much of the playoffs that year. And whenever they would play the Warriors, like there was one time where Steph Curry, the good one, was out, but he was watching the team play like in the stands in like the VIP section. And this was in Portland. And the Portland local broadcast put like over his name, like when they showed him on the camera on the big screen, Seth Curry's brother. None of his like accolades, none of his championships, just brother of
Seth Curry,
like random bench 10-point a game scorer. So
I love that.
I don't think either of the Longstaff brothers are big enough to warrant that treatment. But
what would be the equivalent of that in MLS? Like the Higuain brothers?
I was gonna say when Higuain,
like Pipa Higuain's brother.
Remember they both like linked up at Miami for like that 1.5 season? That was MLS heritage.
That was imagine that if that was like Miami did decent that year and they kept like building off that and never got messy. Like they kept building off like him and like Pizarro and like
that was a rough team to watch for a while there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I still remember is, oh man, I'm spacing his name all of a sudden. The guy that they snagged from Toronto that they let go for just pennies.
At Miami?
Yeah. It was number 10. They let him go for like
Pozuelo.
Yeah. That was stupid.
He did so good while he was there, actually, too. It was crazy because he really turned around that team and Higuain was firing. But you're right. The streets won't forget the Federico Higuain lockdown 2020 when he played for DC United for like 4 months and he was just cooking people in the MLS's back tournament.
Dude, I missed that guy at the Crew, though. That was a fun era of the Crew to watch.
Yeah, I agree.
That was just a fun era of MLS. Him and Piatti, Nacho Piatti,
man.
And Valeri. Those are like the Mount Rushmore of MLS.
Like Argentine number 10.
Who else was a 10 during that era?
I'd say he was kind of escaping his prime in the league, but Javier Morales, if you include maybe like 4 years back.
Oh, yeah.
That guy kind of was like the first of that era, like big name for the time, Argentine number 10s.
Yeah.
So those are some names to spitball with each other. That's awesome.
Anyways, this Toronto game,
good win for the Reds.
What's your takeaway here? Is Dallas that bad, or is Toronto starting to be that good? Third in the East now. Dallas just looking like cheeks in the West. They're 13th, behind the Timbers. So
yeah,
they're only 1 point ahead of San Jose.
It's been really bad for Dallas. Kind of like Orlando. Not as much expectation, but people were pretty hyped on them. They got Petar Musa, and they were a good squad last year. I think I'm curious with Alan Velasco, like coming back to speed and playing and affecting the squad, how it looks. Because, I mean, you take any team's best creative player by far, zap them out. Of course they're going to look not great. But Toronto just did it without Insigne, so what can you say?
And, I mean, it should be said, like 4 of Dallas's, like, arguably most important players didn't start this game. Like, Jesus Ferreira was out. Dante Sealy was out. Ijara Mendy was out. Logan Farrington was out. I got some belief in Logan Farrington. I think that guy should get a little bit more run out with the team, but
Logan Farrington,
come on the pod, dude. Get him in here.
we can maybe organize
that might
one.
be that might be possible. But yeah, they definitely didn't have all their starters, and then like you said, they didn't have Alan Velasco as well. So I don't know if you could be too upset with that game if you're a Dallas fan, other than the fact that you probably are just upset with this season so far.
I agree. Moving on, Chicago Fire, the men in red, hosting the New England Revolution. Another game where we predicted, I thought the Fire were going to turn up, man. I said 3-1 Chicago. Chase said 1-0 to the Revs on the road, and Chase gets the result. 3 points
Let's go.
in the table for him.
My first absolutely correct result of the season so far.
11 weeks in.
11 weeks in, I have narrowed the margin down to 5 points only.
Great week for you, but
That I randomly get these. I talked about this last week.
said
I
it
just
was
go
vibes.
with, I go with the vibes in my heart, and for like what this is week 11, so for the first 10 weeks it just doesn't pay off, and then I'll get like a random run of like 1, maybe 2, 3 weeks here where I'll just be spot on with the vibes, and then it'll all fall apart again.
This is a Thomas Chonkale fan account from now on. Scores an absolute screamer. This guy is what you think of when you think of MLS, like random youngerish South American guy who's like scores these random bangers where he'll terrorize a team like Chicago Fire and just send all their fans home packing.
This is like when you play a career mode in FIFA, and then like Piatti or like one of those guys we were just talking about like retires, and then you get a region in your academy. That's Chonkale right there, dude.
I was gonna say this feels like an FM game for me. Like, say you're managing your own version of Chicago Fire, a team that's you put a lot of signings in. There's this buzz, but you can't get them to turn your fortunes around, right? They can't get wins. They're struggling. So you look at the table and you say, "Oh, I'm playing the team that's last place in in the table or in the conference at home. Surely we're gonna win." And then they just drop a stinker at home, and the other team, you watch the replay, they score an absolute worldie, and you're just this is the type of game you get fired from.
They score a worldie, and then you look at their roster, and they have a guy on it that looks like somebody sneezed on a keyboard. You can't even print like Barak Tarivic. Like
you're signing guys.
Like, who even is that guy?
You signed a semi-pro guy from like USL 3, if that even exists. Some guy from like some wonder kid from the Indian Premier League is on the other squad. Yeah,
oh man,
just. I mean, this is a very dull game to talk about. I won't lie.
Hey, we can't forget about Ivicic though.
Aljaž Ivicic, first start for the Revs.
First start, making an absolutely amazing save on a free kick. Good for him.
I mean, he's always
the Terminator is back in the league.
He always on his day was like a decent, like he had those saves where he would just pull it out of the bag. So
I didn't point it out when we watched that highlight earlier. Did you see his face after he made that save?
Stone cold.
Zero emotion. Man just like sprinting across his line, dives, like makes a save that's going like pretty top corner, lands on the ground, and then like you get the zoom in and he just stands up, just stone cold, no emotion on his face. Usually there's something cool about that, but for him, it just does not work for me. For him, it's just like, what is wrong with you, you psycho?
I saw a funny clip that kind of cracked me up. It was after the game, after the result, the victory for the Revs. And you know how a lot of times the social media person will like run up to a player, usually who scores, and they'll be like, "Great win, boys. We got to keep working. We got to keep moving." Like something generic like that, right? Kind of sports hyperbole. They go up to Ivicic, and in his Eastern European thick accent, he just goes, "Those are donuts. We go for donuts." Because they kept the clean sheet. Good for him. We're going to take 20 seconds at most at this game. Next one. Houston Dynamo hosting St. Louis. The Tim Parker Classico in Houston. 0-0. Boring game. Don't care. Don't ask.
I think I would actually like to deep dive into the expected goals added for both these teams, and
we got a couple more 0-0 draws on the table for this, so
we'll fly through them. Let's talk about a more exciting game, though. Nashville 4, Club de Foot Montreal 1. Nashville, they do not score more than 2 goals every month, I'd say. So kind of crazy to see them drop a 4 bomb in a game here.
Sam Surridge remembered how to score goals. He got a hat trick.
Did you see his 3rd goal?
Yeah, absolute FIFA goal, that one.
Dude, that one was he gets a header blocked. They fire it back in. It's blocked again. Another shot goes off the crossbar, and then he just volleys it into the between the keeper's legs or something. No, he volleys it straight at the keeper, who kicks it into his own goal as he's trying to save it. Absolute chaos.
Yeah, that's wild.
Sam Surridge, though, good for him. He was on 2 goals for the whole season until this game. He's now on 5.
He has also now officially scored more MLS hat tricks than the Portland Timbers organization. Good on you, Sammy.
That is crazy. But one thing I will say, this is a random rant. Hat tricks are awesome. They're a great measure of a player's ability, but I think they inflate numbers a little bit, because you get these games where it gets a little out of hand, the other team loses morale, and strikers will rack up the numbers. Sam Surridge on 5 goals in 11 games now. Doesn't tell the full story.
That's a lot of flattering.
But then when you look at it, so what I'm getting to here is every time you look at a Timbers leading goal scorer, you look at a Diego Valeri's record, or you look at a Fernando Adi, that was dominance for multiple years. There was no inflated stats, no games where they racked up the number there.
It's true. You think of a Valeri MVP season scoring 21 goals, and he didn't get a single hat trick. Few braces in there, but puts it into perspective how many games he really affected. Great call.
That was a random shout that most people will probably disagree with.
Moving on, good win, Nashville.
Montreal, though, only goal was an own goal that Walker Zimmerman scored. We need to talk about Walker Zimmerman, dude.
Good to have that guy back. That guy is the epitome of MLS.
Dude, you see his goal. So Walker Zimmerman scored 2 goals this game, one for his team, one against his team. His goal, it's like a set piece, and he just rises above everybody else, and he's doing a spin midair, and it just goes off the back of his head into the goal. He lands and just absolutely freaks out. This guy has been unhinged. He has a lot of pent-up energy from his time out with injury. So much so that we saw him recently at a different sporting event.
The Nashville Predators, man.
Absolutely unhinged. I don't know if this was before game or mid-game. Just walk us through this moment here.
So apparently Nashville Predators, the NHL team, I think this was their last regular season game. Maybe their last home game. I'm not sure if they made the playoffs. They posted a fan appreciation thing afterwards. Anyway, they have this tradition where to rile up the crowd, it's Nashville, it's dirty Nashville, it's kind of the South.
Kind of the South.
They have a celebrity or somebody.
So much disrespect for anybody who's Nashville, through and through right there. It's kind of the South.
I mean, it is, but it's not it's not
I know what you
Alabama
mean.
Or Mississippi or a state like that. Anyway, and Nashville's got this weird glow up kind of aura around the city, and a lot of people are migrating out there, moving out there. So anyway, long story short, they give this person a catfish, and they just, I don't know what they instruct them to do. Just hold it. They're supposed to throw it on the ice at some point, which they didn't even show. I if I'm not mistaken, because some other team started to do that with an octopus, and I think that's where it stemmed from. What somebody said in a YouTube Shorts comment section. Anyway, Nashville Predators have got Walker Zimmerman standing there. He's got his long hair out, no bun or anything like he normally does, and so he already looks kind of Viking-esque. And he grabs this wet catfish and just starts screaming in every direction and throwing his arms in the air. He looked like just a Viking apex predator. and then he's just letting loose, screaming his head off. It was wild to see.
Two things I noticed about that was the absolutely just insane look in that guy's eye and just the blood-curdling like scream he let out made me think he was going to bite that fish. Like just take a big old bite out of it. Second thing was the death grip that guy had on it. If you look at his hands, you can just see the fish like bulging between his fingers because he just has like a death grip on this like poor catfish that he's just like he's thrashing around and just screaming, and absolutely insane moment. But
it deserves to be an all-time iceberg moment for me.
That absolutely deserves it.
Nobody
for sure.
epitomizes kind of MLS more than like a guy like Walker Zimmerman. Like came out of the college draft, bounced around a few different teams, but like solid career, solid player. And I just want to like just side by side at some point. I hope somebody does this. Do you remember the viral clip that went out like a year ago of him at a Taylor Swift concert?
No.
He's wearing like these like nerdy looking glasses, and he's at a concert, I think with his wife, and she's taking a video of him, and he's just like kind of flailing around, like just swinging and just like singing like word for word every lyric of this like really upbeat Taylor Swift song. And you have the duality of Walker Zimmerman, him right there, and then just going like absolutely primal with the catfish.
It's men when they're with their wife versus when they're without their wife
versus with a fish.
That's like when you're with your boys and when you're with your wife.
Yeah, there's no better.
Anyways, we'll move on. We didn't even talk about Montreal at all, but they didn't.
Sucks for them.
Yeah, sorry, Montreal.
Their one goal was a known goal, so they get the pass this week. Hey, they were our cover team 2 weeks ago on the pod. So
yeah, so take that, Montreal.
RSL hosting Sporting Kansas City in a 1-0 affair. This is like the most 2013 MLS matchup you can think of.
Rematch of the 2013 MLS Cup.
That's right. These teams have bad blood. I don't know if that's still the case, but Chicho Arango, another goal up there in the Golden Boot race. 1-0, 81st minute.
Yeah, I think he's one goal behind Messi and Suarez now, which, looking at the team that he is doing that with, is very impressive. This guy is a beast in MLS. I hope he just drags this RSL team up the table.
Same. I love to see, too, because I feel like you see a player like this, right, who's a big-time player, came to LAFC, immediately splashed, and gelled well with his team, was really successful, and then he leaves, right, because LAFC kind of extended different options. Then he comes back with like not like a super glamorous team, right? Like if he would have went to New York or Miami or Toronto, I love to see him. I love to see him at a team like RSL, smaller market, but he's like really behind everything there. He's the captain now. Like I would love to see him become a legend, like with
in
this
RSL.
club.
No, that's awesome. I would love to see that as well. I like Chicho Arango a lot. I like the career path. I think I would like him a lot less if he had just stayed at LAFC and was just thrashing the league there. Which, funny enough, what LAFC lacks right now is exactly what Chicho Arango would bring to this team.
It's all right. They're going to get Giroud for 12 months.
I think I saw somebody was talking about like when he'll actually like sign and like officially go through everything and then most likely be able to play. He'll have like 10 games with the team or something at the end of the season.
Because it's post-Leagues Cup, right?
Yeah. So he's going to have like 10 games with this team and then, maybe play next year? We'll see. He's like 39 right now.
Yeah, I think it's an 18-month contract. So we'll get a full year next year, but like that doesn't really do much.
This year's a
for
wash. Like it's not helping them at all this year.
Yeah. Respect for RSL. First place in the West, climbing the table. They're at the top. Respect for Chicho Arango. Could he be the next Alvaro Saborio for RSL? Who knows? But
I think he's the next Devin Sandoval, actually.
Kevin Grossman. Remember that guy? Yeah. Moving on. Vancouver Whitecaps hosting Austin FC. 0-0. BC Place. Whitecaps probably should have had a penalty. Maybe. We don't know. Didn't get called.
I love Whitecaps losing points at home. That is my favorite thing this week.
Not a bad draw for Austin FC. They've had a good run of form. They're 6th place. You know what's wild? They're only 4 points off of second place, 5 points off of first. That's why I took them out of Fraud Watch. They've not been world beaters, but they've picked up good points and places where they not necessarily should have had to. Man, Chase is just cracking up when I'm.
I'm sorry. I was looking up Devin Sandoval. I googled him, and then it says people also search for Andrew Jean Baptiste, Chris Wingert, Alvaro Saborio, and Chris Schuler.
That's like 2013 Western Conference Final heritage right there.
Ethan Sampson.
Oh man, that one's lost. Robbie Finley. That one's burned in my mind.
Ethan Sampson played for the Whitecaps. He's a defender. Lloyd Sam, but his all these pictures are like pictures of the guy's face. Lloyd Sam is just a picture of his crotch. just a
what in the
odd,
world?
like zoomed in picture of him on the field, just a picture of his crotch.
Dude, Chris Wingert looks like that one SNL Saturday
Oh
Night Live
yeah,
host.
he does.
What a pretty boy.
Oh man. Anyways, let's move on. I got completely distracted by Devin Sandoval. That guy had a head of hair on him. What? How did that guy not land like a Neutrogena
Head and shoulders.
Yeah, like how did that guy not get an ad somehow back in his heyday or back when he was playing for Las Vegas Lights?
That's wild. He seems like he would thrive in the Vegas scene. Moving on, New York City FC, this global powerhouse of a football group backed by all the money in the world, hosted Colorado Rapids, and your Colorado Rapids win 2-0 on the road. Take that, City Football Group. Rafael Navarro and Cole Bassett, both with goals yet again. Rapids, man, 5th place. 3 points off the top spot in the West. Who saw that coming?
Cole Bassett continues his MVP campaign. This guy has been awesome this season. He is arguably their most important player, where everybody thought Jordy Mihailovic was going to be that guy for them. Cole Bassett kind of got shifted. He's kind of played like across that like 3, like he was available to kind of play across that 3 behind the striker. They dropped him a bit deeper, and it's just worked out so well for them. He's looked really good. I think he's been one of my favorite players this season so far.
Right, he's looked great. I would love to see him either stay here and like help Colorado continue to like build something, or it'd be cool to see him go back to Europe. I think he's an interesting player. A lot of people were kind of bullish on him, and then he went to the Dutch league, didn't really pan out, but I would like to see him go back and try his trade there. But good for the Rapids. Snapped New York City FC's 5-game unbeaten streak. They were in decent form, so good point. 3
You'll
points.
love to see it. They had 33% possession for this game. Kind of crazy, but that's the Rapids way,
That's
baby.
Armas ball.
Let's go.
Last game of the week, Seattle Sounders hosting LA Galaxy, minus Joveljic and Ricky Puig, and it's a 0-0 draw.
What do you say about this? Honestly, worse result for Galaxy than it is for Seattle. I mean, Seattle at home, they probably are hoping for more, but Galaxy on a bad turn of form right now. I think their past 3 games, they haven't gotten a win, if I remember correctly, right? Let me pull it up real quick. Spit some facts about this Seattle team.
So, Seattle, rough game. Pedro de la Vega looks like he's coming back, though. They had a big win midweek at Philadelphia, which was huge for them. And so, once again, kind of like with Montreal that game, we're thinking, is Seattle finally coming around? Are the things clicking? Didn't happen for them. Once again, it's just this thing with them. When they do get chances in the box, they completely fluff them. They're missing these huge opportunities, and they don't have a consistent like goal-scoring threat. They had a call-up from Tacoma Defiance, their next pro team, come in the game, and he looked like one of their better players in like a 10-minute cameo. Like, the offense is so rough. But my real moment of this game that was notable, Greg Vanney, if you look at like the way he was coaching on the sideline, He's wearing this like cream-colored sweater, but on the broadcast TV, he was wearing this cream-colored sweater and like a black puffer like pullover over it, and then like a scarf. Well, in between the scarf and the jacket, you could see like a section of looked like skin because of the same exact color of his skin, and so it looks like he's just like wearing a scarf and a giant black like overcoat with no t-shirt underneath, just bare skin. And it was the talk of Twitter on MLS. That's my analysis.
Oh man, LA Galaxy. I mean, rough tie against a pretty poor Sounders team, and then they lost last week against Austin 2-0. So not too bad of a run of form, because before that they had beat San Jose, they'd beat Vancouver. So I guess not too terrible, just 2 rough weeks in a row. But I mean, for a top contender that wants to be challenging for everything, I mean, they've come out and said it. They want to be challenging at the top of the West. You expect a little bit more out of them in these games against 2 of like the lowest teams in the West. I mean, Austin has gotten their way back up the table, but what was 2 of the lowest teams in the West? Not that great. Not that great from the Galaxy.
Yeah.
But
that wraps up this week in MLS. Completely original name.
No games this week for us.
No games.
All right, goodbye, everybody.
I was moving this past weekend, so I don't have internet. We're itching to play some pro clubs. I'm going to be playing like on the floor of our new place with a hotspot connection. So, and I got not much, but about twice as much of a drive coming from the studio these days.
That is true. This man has to commute quite a bit further just to make it here to spit some MLS.
What was your favorite moment of the week?
Anything relating MLS, I would say the Walker Zimmerman video that came out. I would say, like, for game action, that Bernadeschi goal was pretty great, but I'd say the Jack McGlynn goal was, like, one of the best goals of the season so far.
That was a nut strike. I'm going with the San Jose victory. Big rivalry match. They hyped this one up. They put it in the big stadium, and they delivered. They beat LAFC pretty bad. Their new DP debuted. Their DP from earlier this season got another goal. So, like, it seems like that's a great step in the right direction for the Quakes. Come on.
Let's go. Well, shall we wrap it up with some predictions?
Let's do it.
Jacob is still whooping me, sitting on 20 points. I'm sitting on 15, but I'm making my way back up. I'm still going on vibes. I went on vibes this week. What are you going with? First game, we got Columbus. I put it down as COL, so I always think it's Colorado. I don't know why I do that. Columbus hosting Cincinnati. The hell is real derby. Who you got winning this one?
This one's in Columbus, and it's a really tricky one, honestly, because Columbus is so good, right? They just took down Monterrey, beat them in their own house, which was pretty nuts, but they've drawn a lot of games in the league, and especially at home, I feel like my brain is telling me, everything's telling me Columbus are going to win this game. It's a big, fiery game once again, but something inside me it screams trap game. And if there's one team who could pull that off well, it's Cincinnati. I'm going 2-1 FC Cincinnati.
I almost agree with you. This was a tough one because it feels like this is where Columbus would lose. But I don't know because they haven't played since the 1st. They have a big gap here. So it's like 10 days rest. Their next game after this is this upcoming Wednesday. So they got Montreal after they play against Cincy, away in Montreal. I think Cincy's probably a little bit more of a priority for them. I think they probably play all their best guys in this game and then rotate for the Montreal game. At home, I think the rivalry means a lot to them. But I don't know. I had a tough time because I feel like Cincy, the way they lost out of the playoffs
they're
against Columbus, I think they're going to be upset. They're going to come at them with a vengeance. but I still feel like Columbus gets it done 2-1. This Columbus team is too good. Cincy hasn't looked that great this year. Columbus has looked awesome this year.
Right. I can see this one going either way, honestly. I wouldn't be surprised by any result.
Next up, we got another rivalry game that probably isn't as nearly as anticipated, but for us it is, and it could make or break the next 3 months of my life. Portland hosting Seattle. This is just like it's so different than like 10, like even 5 years ago, where these teams are battling it out, both in playoff positions. They're both battling it out, top of the table. They've been in the playoff final for like multiple years in a row. And now you got both teams battling it out in the bottom of the
and 12th
West.
place. This is definitely the battle of mid. I saw people posting that online. You're right. Lowest. I mean, it's high stakes though because of how bad both of these teams are. But like lowest kind of implications table wise, I feel like in a very, very long time.
Both of these teams are where Vancouver usually is, and Vancouver is usually where both of these teams are.
That's pretty straight on right there. I'm going 2-1 Portland. I just can't bring myself to put Seattle beating them. I know I'm probably wrong. Seattle's probably going to come in here. This is going to be a game like Rui Diaz scores a hat trick and scores like banger volleys in the box. But I'm going Portland 2-1.
I'm going 1-1. And here's my reasoning. Portland's defense is terrible. I think Rui Diaz easily gets a goal in the first half, and then they get a red card, and the Timbers just chip away at them for like 80 minutes or something until eventually they get like a scrappy like set piece goal or something.
Timbers play the most maddening, terrible performance in the league for the first half, and then for like a 15-minute span are the most competent, like silky, like attacking, like threatening team in the league.
This will be huge though. This is the first time Phil Neville plays against the Seattle Sounders. This will be huge. This is kind of sets the tone for how he approaches this rivalry for the rest of his tenure.
I remember him saying in some interview, he did like a fan Q&A. He's done a lot of those, and somebody made an offhanded comment like, I don't care what you do, you have to beat Seattle and Portland. Like, the fans care about it, even though it feels like lower stakes. We'll see what Fizzer's up to. He's talked a lot about like the importance of the culture and the heritage of this club. We'll see.
I think he's been cooking up a plan. Evander hasn't really been injured. He's been resting him for 2 weeks. Chara got a red card on purpose.
Teaching them how to bait out Jackson Reagan or Josh Atencio.
He didn't even have him travel. He was just having them watch just footage, nonstop footage.
Just like blackmailing family members. What does Jackson Reagan really get on his nerves?
He had people hack like some of the Sounders players' like Twitter accounts to like tweet some like or DM them some horrible things, get them extra like motivated for this game.
Yeah, so I'm going 8-0 Portland.
I'm going 1-1. It's a draw.
2-1 Portland for me.
Last up, we have a thrilling two teams that in a different era of MLS would have been very thrilling. They both went through a rough period and are back to a thrilling matchup here. LA Galaxy hosting Real Salt Lake. This is very similar to the Columbus-Cincinnati. I feel like this could go either way.
You're right. You have two different ideologies of a football club, of a city, of community. You've got the biggest, most luxurious, high-profile city in the world, and then you got the LA Galaxy.
Carson, California.
Oh, man. I'm going the Galaxy 3-2. I think it's a shootout. RSL is going to make it a game. Chicho Arango, you know he wouldn't love anything more than to just dunk on his former heated rival. I'm going 3-2 Galaxy, though.
You know, I would agree with you, but I think John McCarthy knows a thing or two about a little old Chicho Arango. Is he even playing for them right now? Is John McCarthy even their starter?
Yeah.
All right, good.
Which, if you're right, you have RSL winning.
I do. I have RSL winning either way.
So he doesn't know too much.
Either way, I just wanted to hype up John McCarthy. I think RSL comes in, and I think they take the bag. I think they win. I would agree with you. Chicho Arango looks good. LA Galaxy's biggest weakness is their defense. They look rough in transition, and RSL looks great in transition, especially even on set pieces. Like, I hope LA Galaxy actually mark Chicho Arango, because this guy just keeps getting goals off set pieces where people just aren't marking him. I don't know what he's doing, but it's the weirdest thing. Like, he just is completely wide open
for a header.
wide open, just like a snap header where his like 2 feet of hair just like flicks down and hits his chest. That guy has such a weird haircut, but
he's like one of those dinosaurs with like the weird triangle bone on their head,
he
and he just like whips his neck around and like it's like a mallet coming down. You know, one thing I love to see, actually, this was a week or 2 weeks ago when RSL beat the Philadelphia Union in Philly, and Philly has a great home record. They barely ever lose there, and it was kind of like a little bit of a fiery game, right? Anyway, a lot of Philadelphia fans were like booing and heckling, and then even on Twitter like making digs at Chicho Arango, like making fun of him. And I think there was a lot of bad blood because of the MLS Cup final in 2022 when he was at LAFC, and pretty much some fan tweeted for Philly, sick of Chicho Arango, like as a crying loser, something like that. And Chicho Arango just underneath just posts a picture of him lifting the MLS Cup and posts like cry more or something like that.
Legend.
I like to see a player kind of, even though he doesn't play for like a team that had bad blood with him anymore, he kind of still holds on to that rivalry. He's still a villain for that team.
Legend. I love it. I love it. I hope Chicho Arango scores some goals this weekend. I love watching that guy play. That's it, though.
That's it. That's episode 55
55
of the MLS Net Boys Show. Last episode before we have special guest Logan Farrington. Not really, but one day.
Have Logan Farrington on to discuss his economics homework. Anyways. Thank you all for listening. We'll wrap it up there before we go too far off the rails. As always,
Chris Wingert, come on the show.